Today we're going to be talking about how to stay consistent when chaos hits. And I'm going to kick it off with a little story. If you've been following along for a long time, you will potentially have heard this before, but every year I think about it and it's a lesson that I'll never forget. 7 years ago, almost to the day, on February the 14th, 2019, I collapsed in front of my mum's eyes a couple of times within an hour or so. It was a period of my life where my business was growing fast. I had new responsibilities. And for the first time since I started my fitness journey, I let my system completely slip. I started dropping my sessions from 4 a week to 2 a week. My step count dropped from 10,000 to 4,000. And I started sleeping less and less hours, all with the goal, ironically, to build my fitness business. So on Valentine's Day 2019, my body said enough is enough, and I collapsed 3 times in 2 hours due to exhaustion. And what was crazy is I was inches away from hitting my head on the toilet seat, and my doctor, when the paramedics arrived, said I was dehydrated after running some tests. But I just knew it was exhaustion. I knew it was stress. I knew it was exhaustion. I knew my body had just packed up. And I learned that year to deal with multiple bouts of burnout and exhaustion. And I found my telltale signs were the following. It was chronic dehydration, despite drinking a lot of water, by the way. So I'd be always thirsty. So I'd constantly be thirsty. I'd be drinking 4 or 5 liters of water sometimes, thinking I just can't get hydrated enough. And I, at the time, at the beginning, just thought, maybe I just need more water. Or maybe I've increased my salt intake. But my pee would be yellow no matter what. And then the cycle would repeat itself. My hands would start getting clammy. And then my scalp would also develop eczema, with some areas even leading to hair loss. And then at some points, it was really bad. I'd get infection as well, which was pretty nasty as well, to be honest, having like an infection that was pussing on my scalp. So that year itself, that 2019, was a big learning curve for me in terms of managing my health with rapidly changing responsibilities. And I've since realized every time you develop new responsibilities or go through big changes in your life, the first thing that can slip very easily if you're not careful is your health and fitness. And that's why ever since, having gone through life changes such as becoming a dad for the first time, turning vegan, moving countries, starting new ventures, the first thing I always do is lock in the structure, strategy, and systems for my health. And, over the years, it's become a big part of what we do at RNT, to be honest. I know we work with a lot of busy professionals and high performers who are juggling a lot of different responsibilities. And I know the first thing, if you don't have the right game plan, that falls apart is your fitness. And what lags behind that is your health. And if you're not careful, you can lose all your routines, you can lose all your systems, and you either end up gaining a ton of weight slowly, deteriorating at the same time your mental health, or like I experienced, a wake-up call that you won't ever forget. So if you're listening to this is your wake-up call. This is your reminder that no matter what season you're in, whether you're building something special, whether you're working in long hours than normal, whether you're raising a family, just remember your health. You've only got one body. You've got to protect it. And the good thing is, with the right systems, you don't actually need to do much. And what I want to do in today's podcast is very briefly share how when chaos hits, the bare minimums you can do to keep your health and fitness on track, because it's going to happen, right? Chaos is going to hit. And chaos can happen in multiple different ways. Like it can be slow, steady, and build, like I experienced, where it just got busier and busier and busier, and I had no idea what to do. And I was just slowly just saying, oh, I'll skip this week. I'll skip that. I'll skip this today. I'll skip that today. Oh, maybe 8,000 is okay. Maybe 6,000 is okay. Oh, four's fine. And your standards just slowly drop when it comes to your health and fitness. It can also happen in like big major ways, like for example, on like a daily basis or just random events. Like, I don't know, you could have bad news at work, you could have a bereavement, you could have a flight cancelled and you're stuck at the airport for 4 hours, like more just sort of spike dramatic events. I think people can fall into 2 buckets where if it's a slow, steady burn, like death by 1,000 cuts, you almost don't realize it's happening until you have a wake-up call. For the other situation, what happens is you find yourself in a loop of I'll start when I'm less busy, because you just keep having these like one-off events. And as a result, you don't build a system around these one-off events. So you start developing bad habits and bad patterns, whether it's with travel, like you have a nightmare with travel, sick kids, work deadlines, family emergencies. Basically, anytime chaos happens, because you don't have a system in place, you just keep thinking you know what, this week's already shot. I'm just going to restart on Monday. And that cycle just keeps looping around and around and around. So what I want to cover here is what I like to call the bare minimums. And I want to really emphasize the point that instead of trying to chase perfection in these moments, and instead of just stopping in these moments, I want us to have a backup plan. I want us to build one together here. That if you're listening to this, you've probably got a bit of all or nothing mentality to you. So you try and either maintain perfection when chaos hits and you realize you can't do it. So then you just think, screw it, I'll start next week when I'm back. Or you just automatically just stop. That conversation doesn't even happen. And just before we actually get into it, it can also just happen, like the way it kind of plays out is, let's say it happens on a Monday, right? Monday, everything's sort of normal, but it's a pretty hard day. So you wake up Tuesday exhausted, so you miss your workout. Then on Wednesday, you order takeout because your meal prep went bad. And then Thursday, you skip training again because you're feeling a bit more fatigued. And then Friday, you just think, oh, screw it. You know, I'm just going to enjoy the weekend and then I'll restart on Monday. So the bare minimum system is, I'm going to give you a bunch of different examples. So it can be as simple as having protein at each meal. So even if you're in the middle of nowhere, even if you're, I don't know, you're at the hospital for something, or like, but you're just in a change of environment, you could probably try and control having protein at each meal. Even if it's a protein bar and it's not grilled chicken, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just have something, a protein at each meal. Make that a rule. If you're going through a rough period for a couple of weeks, like you're maybe working on a deal, maybe you're moving countries, maybe you just say to yourself, I'm just going to have protein at each meal. The other thing is bite-sized movement throughout the day. So instead of thinking, I need to go 1 hour, 2 hours to the gym, you put the commute in there, it could be like 2.5 hours. Maybe it's just bite-sized movement throughout the day, stairs, walking, bodyweight workouts, bands, anything that doesn't require gym. Another bare minimum could be committing to a sleep window. So it's saying to yourself, no matter how busy things get, I might just need to commit to a set sleep window between 10 and 11 p.m. And no matter what, I'm not going to break it, because if I break it, everything else is going to fall apart the next day. It might mean you have to say no to certain things. It might mean you have to upset a few people, but this is your own mental and physical health on the line. For myself, a couple of things that have really helped, like even just in the last 6 months, for example, you know, I've had to implement some of these bare minimums because we had Mahi, my second daughter, and then 3 months later, we moved country. So as soon as my daughter was born, we were in the preparation of moving country. Then we moved country. Then we were in temporary accommodation. Then we moved. We finally settled in. And now we're recording this like 3 months after moving, and 6 months since my daughter has arrived. I'm just reflecting back and thinking a lot of these bare minimums were put in place during pretty much like big life events that, if you're not careful with, can bring with it a ton of bad habits and break a lot of your systems that you might have in place. So some of the things that I did were committing to sleep windows. Like whilst I couldn't control what was happening at night and in the morning because of having young kids, I could control when I went to bed. So that was one thing. It was shortening my workouts. So at some points, it's just not been realistic to get the full workouts in. There've been many workouts where I've just done, like, I've walked into the gym, I've just done the first 2 exercises and just walked out, and I just went for it on those first 2 exercises, tried to hit whatever my goal was for that session, and then walked out. It just wasn't feasible that day to get the full session in. So those like sort of 10-minute bite-sized workouts have been really useful for me. And then the third thing has just been, it has been the pinned eating structure that I talk about so much, is just committing to set times in the day where I eat and making sure when I do eat, there's going to be protein available. Now, as a vegan, sometimes it's been difficult because I've not had the right things in place. I've not checked the right places in the area that I'm in. I have not built that part of the system yet. So what I would do instead is just make sure that I was eating only at set times, and if I underate in protein in one meal, I would try and double it up on the next one. Not perfect, but it keeps things moving. And as a result, you know, over the last 6 months, I've been able to maintain my body composition in a good sweet spot range, whilst minimizing any sort of bad habits or health implications that might have come from big life changes. So those would be like, what you want to do here is you want to pick your chaos minimums, like your 3 things that are going to be enough to keep you in the game. It's not your ideal routine, but it keeps you in the game. And that's going to be key here. The second thing is you want to remove every decision you can. So once you've set your bare minimum sort of non-negotiables, you then want to remove every decision. So have default meals for chaos, like 0 thought options you can grab order or throw together. So for example, if you're at an airport, if you're going through a season at work where you're at the airport every other week, or you're driving on the road long periods of time, like maybe there's certain things you buy at the gas station or the airport that you know you can get. So it could be Greek yogurt, it could be protein bar, it could be banana. If you're eating out a bit more than normal and you're in a restaurant, maybe you have a rule that it's any protein, any vegetables, and then ask them to skip the sauce. And that's just a rule that you have if you're moving around a lot. That's definitely something I was doing a lot of during the move when we didn't always want to or could cook because we didn't have the right stuff in place. So I would just go out, find somewhere pretty healthy, and then make that rule of protein, vegetables, and skip anything on the side. And then maybe there's something to be said for having an option where you're home but you're exhausted. So you get home, you're just like, just the idea of like coming up with an idea of what to eat now, it just isn't there. So maybe you've got a home but exhausted option, which is chicken or tofu, microwavable rice, and frozen broccoli. And that's something you can stick together. It requires no thought and takes 5 minutes to prepare. So these are just some basic examples of like removing all the decision around your defaults and having zero thought options you can grab through the chaos. In terms of movement, so that's the nutrition aspect. In terms of movement, maybe it could be, if you're stuck in a hotel, 10 minutes of walking while on a call. If you're stuck in an office building late night, maybe you just go hit the stairs for 5 minutes just to energize yourself. If you're stuck at home on long days of meetings, maybe in between Zoom calls, you just knock out 20 bodyweight squats. Now, these sort of bite-sized movement can make a big difference in how you feel and just keeps the blood pumping. You keep the blood pumping around the body and your brain feels good. So what we're trying to do here is we're not trying to make massive leaps of progress. If you're in this sort of season and you're listening to this thinking, I'm in a season of change, your goal is not to make massive amounts of progress. Your goal is just maintenance. It's just staying in the game. So 3 protein-focused meals, bite-sized movement, and a mindset of let's just try and maintain things and stay in the game as opposed to making massive changes. And what I see here with people with chaos minimums, they don't restart after a hard week. They just keep going. They're the ones, if you look at the ones who are trying to maintain their normal routine and trying to be perfect, they just break every time. And I've seen this with many of our clients here at RNT who, especially people that are traveling on like a very weekly or bi-weekly basis. I remember there was a member of ours, Sumit, recently who shared on the podcast. If you haven't listened to it, it is episode 447. On that episode, he dropped 50 pounds in 2025, and he shared how he was pretty much going back and forth between London and New York or Vegas on a bi-weekly basis. And throughout the whole period, he dropped 50 pounds because he had these chaos minimums set in place. And that's what we want here is, for him, he was actually making progress through this because he wanted to, he had the mindset of wanting to make progress. And because he was doing it so often, it just became his new norm. But for others, it may be just the case of, right, I got a really big month coming up, trying to close this deal, I'm working off site, maybe a management consultant, they often have these periods where they're going to remote parts of the country. They've got to get this deal over the line. They're working 18 hours a day. Let's just go into the chaos. Let's just get those chaos minimums. And you'll be surprised what happens when you do that. And more than importantly, you'll be surprised how much your health and fitness stays in order, and you'll hopefully avoid one of those wake-up calls that I had. That wake-up call is something that I will never, ever forget. It strengthened the mission that I'm on with helping busy, high-performing professionals, entrepreneurs, founders, execs, build a system around their health and fitness, despite the chaos of life. So if this episode resonated with you, then job done. And if it's not something you've dealt with yet, then definitely implement those chaos minimums the next time chaos happens. And that's it for today. Hey, just a quick one. If you haven't seen already, I have launched a brand new twice weekly newsletter designed to help you look, feel, and perform better every single day. It's called Built for Life, and I'm really excited about this project. If you haven't already subscribed to the newsletter, please go to www.builtforlife.io to subscribe. It's 100% free. It's only twice a week. And inside each issue, we're going to be tackling a specific problem and a specific system you need to build as a high-performing busy professional so you can look, feel, and perform your best.